All right. What is up, everybody? What is up? What is up? What is up? Turn this down a little bit. You know, like normally I'm pretty excited to go live. Like normally I'm pretty hype. I listen to some music and I kind of get like a lot of energy and stuff going. But this past couple days, like leading up to this live stream, I had this internal struggle a little bit where part of me is like, do I even want to touch? Do I even want to touch these subjects? You know, like a lot of times I think like what I try to do with my channel and my streams is I try to bring positivity. And I still want to, obviously. I still want to, but I think I need to, like, these things happening in our country and like around the world and stuff, they're important to me just like they're important to you, as they should be, you know? And I was like, why am I hesitating so much about wanting to voice my opinion about these things? You know, like opening Pandora's box, so to speak. And I think a lot of it has to do with knowing the backlash that can come from having a different opinion nowadays. And so when I was like, do I want to even start talking about politics and current events on the channel? The last time I did that was with Charlie Kirk. And I think the stream went pretty good. You know, if you were to like look at the actual analytics afterwards, you know, some of the shorts and stuff that were put out afterwards, like some got down votes, some got up votes, you know, and I think that just sort of like, that's just where the country's at right now. You know, we're very divided in a lot of things. And so I was like, you know, these things are important to me, and am I not wanting to talk about them on my channel because of how others may react to it, you know, and like not follow and stuff like that. And I thought to myself, like, I don't even want to start going down that road of thinking about censoring myself because some people might not like it or because I will lose followers, you know? Like right now, I don't know, I think I'm at like 6,000, like almost 7,000 subscribers. That's small, you know? I don't want to already be having these thoughts now when hopefully I hit more, 100,000 or whatever. And so I was like, I have to rip that Band-Aid off now. If I don't rip that Band-Aid off now, then that feeling of censoring myself or that worry will just get worse with time. And I want to be able to talk about what I want to be able to talk about, Like the channel is called Real Talk with Seth. Now, whether I talk about every single political thing going on out there, I don't know. But I think what I want to do is talk about the ones that are important to me, And so if somebody's like, yeah, but what about this thing? Like, frankly, that might be a topic I don't really care about. And if that's one of those topics I don't really care about, I'm not going to talk about it. Or maybe I won't have an opinion about it. And the other part was I was worried, like, well, when you start getting into politics, there's a lot of people that are terminally online that have a whole lot of opinions, and and I'm like, yeah, like I don't want to be necessarily a political streamer, I don't think, but at the same time, I can talk about how something makes me feel, and I don't have to be right. I don't have to debate anything. I could just say, yeah, this is how I feel about this. And then hopefully I foster a community that can be both sides on topics, and we can actually have the conversation and go back and forth, I think the only real rule that I'll have in my chat eventually is, hey, like, if you disagree with me, that's fine. But don't just say like wrong or you're wrong. Like, come up with something that is adding to the conversation. Like, tell me why I'm wrong. Show me why I'm wrong. You can't just say wrong, like that's the most weakest bitch shit ever, like honestly, it's a cop out. I think it's like an intellectual cop out. Like, you should be able to have a back and forth conversation with somebody and not get super riled up, not get super irritated, all that stuff. So, yeah, let me just check a couple streams looking good before we get into things. Okay. So what I want to do tonight with this stream, I do have 2 viewer questions that we're going to get to, just like we always usually do. And I think that will be good. I like that content. I think everybody likes that. So, again, we'll keep a lot of the stream the same, but I'm sort of experimenting here in the early phases with what I want this stream to even be about. What do I want this channel to be about? And I want it to be a voice of reason. I think I have a level head, and I think I can think pretty clearly, and I don't get super emotional about things. So I feel like I can add that to the conversation. So what we're gonna do tonight is we're gonna open up X, and we're gonna see what's going on. The first topic I want to talk about is the ICE involved shooting in Minneapolis. We'll talk about that. I'll give my opinion on that. And if people in the chat want to jump in and say their piece and whatnot, then, absolutely we can go back and forth. And then I have a couple of things to talk about on Venezuela, I think. Not really a whole lot there. And then the Iran protests, which are pretty crazy. And so yeah, let's just get into it. You know what I mean? Let's just get into it. Let's see what's going on. Like, just like with anything with X, it pops off. You know what I mean? Like it can get a little crazy. So let me just refresh this. It's also pretty crazy too. Like, I'm not a huge, I never was with Twitter either. Like, I never was a real big, like, Twitter user, but I feel like, I never really went back. Like, I never gave it a chance after when it was Twitter and it was like you had just this little tiny sentence to say your piece, and I was just like, it was just basically people arguing. And I think most of it still is that, but you can kind of get some, like with the Iran protests and stuff, and we'll get to this in a little bit. But with the Iran protests, like their internet and stuff is out right now, and a lot of the major news sources here in America isn't even really covering it. So when you go on to something like X, you get to see all these like cell phone videos of what's going on, and I think that is I think it's a really cool thing that I think that's probably the coolest part about the platform nowadays, you know. So all right, let's just look at this. Let's just bring this up. So I typed in ice. Maybe I typed in ice shooting, and you know, we'll just kind of go along and see what we see. So make sure I can actually see it too. So one of the first things. So yeah, JD Vance, and I think I found like a little video clip that we'll watch a little bit later, but obviously the administration is going to stand behind the ICE agents. So this says, it's a quote from Vice President JD Vance: "I want every ICE officer to know that their president, vice president, and the entire administration stands behind them. To the radicals assaulting them, doxing them, and threatening them, congratulations. We're going to work even harder to enforce the law." So I like the sentiment of this, but in reality, I really have not seen a lot of that from this administration. When you go on sites like X, or even worse, when you go on sites like Reddit, and you see some of the things that are posted on there, I guess I grew up under the impression, you know, growing up, that the government was watching every single thing you did. And if you typed in some red flag words, you know, in a chat somewhere, that you were going to get a knock on the door. And I just don't think that's the way that it is anymore. Because every time we see something pop off where somebody does something, you know, some sort of like a domestic terrorist attack, or you know, a shooting or whatever, the FBI always comes out afterwards and they're like, "Oh yeah, they were on our radar." I mean, it's like, yeah, okay, but like, maybe you should do more about that. Like, maybe you should be a little bit more proactive about that. You know, like, I guess I was like kind of under the facade that you would get in trouble for saying certain things, and all they need to really do is just go to Reddit and Blue Sky, and you're going to see some crazy shit, right? And I bet if you went to Truth Social, you'd see some crazy shit. And I bet if you went to, what is that? There's another one that's like more about free speech and stuff like that. I can't remember what it is. But if you went to something like that, I bet you'd see some crazy shit. Like, that's where I want the FBI to be paying attention. I want them looking there so that we can start weeding out some of this mental illness that is happening on those platforms. And like JD Vance is talking about here, like the radicals assaulting them and yada yada. That's a lot of words. It's a lot of verbiage. It sounds like a lot of rah rah rah. But like, I think most Americans that sit in the middle say, yeah, the people that say these things, they ain't right. You know, they're not right. So somebody ought to be paying attention to that person, you know? So that's just my thought on that. So this one's a Charlie Kirk reference here that I thought is kind of interesting. Charlie Kirk got shot while peacefully exercising his free speech rights. The left celebrated and called for more political violence. Woman attempts to illegally run over an ICE agent with her car and gets shot. The left screams and protests. This is who they are. Never forget. So I think that more people in America sit in the middle than on either sides of the political spectrum. But the problem is that no one is really like screaming and shouting and stuff from the center. It's always from the extreme sides, you know? And the people that have like what I'll say like reasonable views, we don't have a voice, you know? And part of it is, I think, this whole like it goes deeper. So the reason everything I think is getting more extreme on either side is because our news system runs off of advertisers. And you know what makes advertisers more money? More people watching the content. And you can say this is also streamers too, right? The more like radical a streamer is, like Destiny or Asmongold, etc., like the more eyeballs are on their content. The more eyeballs that are on the content, the more those ads make. The more that person makes in revenue for saying extreme things. So you have the incentive to say the most crazy shit possible, because the more you say that, the more people watch you, the more money you make, the more advertisers are happy, and it's like this human centipede like cycle. So then if these like media outlets and these streamers and stuff are supposed to be kind of like the voice of the people, the center is not being represented anymore because the center doesn't make any money. If you say reasonable shit online, everybody's just like, all right, yeah, whatever. You know, your content doesn't get clicks, it doesn't get shares, it doesn't get retweets or whatever it's called on X now, you know, and then that voice, those voices just get kind of muted. It's the far right, the far left that is causing all of the noise, and everybody that's in the center, or maybe you're even like lean a little right or you lean a little left, like I feel like we're all just like, what the fuck? Like, what the fuck is going on? You know, it's very disheartening. So again, when we see like a meme like this, it's like categorizing all of the people on the left as, you know, the ones celebrating Charlie Kirk's death and stuff like that. Was there people on the left that celebrated it? Sure. Yeah, sure. Is there people on the right that's celebrating this woman, her death? I have seen a couple, not as many, but I have seen a couple memes floating around. But it's like in retaliation to how people reacted to Charlie Kirk. And that whole ping pong thing just keeps going and keeps going. And so I think most people, when they see what happened, specifically when we're talking about the Minneapolis shooting, I think most reasonable people are like, damn, that's sad that someone got shot, like someone just died. And for one thing, if you're of a certain age, when you witness like video of somebody dying, it still fucks with you a little bit. I know people that are younger than me that kind of like grew up a little bit more desensitized to it. It doesn't even bother them. They're just like, oh yeah, somebody died. But for, I think, my generation at least, when I see somebody, like the moments they died, it bothers me. I'm like, fuck, you know, like Charlie Kirk died that was very graphic. So that one fucked me up for a little bit. And not necessarily even because I was like a huge Charlie Kirk fan, but just because like, God, it was so graphic, you know? And then like the ICE shooting here, it's like, yeah, sure, the video could cut off or whatever, but you know, when the gun's shooting, you know what the bullets are doing. And it should bother you. That's what should happen. That's a human approach to it, you know? But so anyway, so I think most people that sit in the middle are like, damn, that's really sad, but what the fuck was she thinking? What was she doing? You know, why was she there? Why was she there doing that? Like, that's not a normal response. It's definitely not a normal, like, mother of 2 or 3. I think 3, but I don't know if one of them's that technically hers or not. But it's like, what were you doing? Why did you drive all that way to do this thing. You know, what the hell? Yeah. It's it's upsetting, and I think it should be. The moment that it's not upsetting, I think something's wrong. So let's just go couple. See what most of these people are saying. This one says the right celebrating ICE agents murdering U.S. citizens. They're retweeting or whatever. Somebody saying I don't care. Whoa, it's a lot bigger. I don't care how high the body count gets. I stand with ICE.gov. Yeah. And then that person's saying this is the right celebrating ICE agents murdering U.S. citizens. Just like the meme before this or whatever I showed you before this was the person pointing at the left, you know? So the left's pointing at the right, the right's pointing at the left. Here's my take on it, because I'm not going to sit here and go over the video footage with you and the replay and the frame and look, and then now her brakes are on and now now she's pressing the gas and her tires are going forward, etc. Like, there's enough videos of that out there right now. I don't need to do that. I don't need to add my voice in there. But what I will say is, we have to ask ourselves what type of country we want to live in. You know, what do we want America to be? Because growing up, I knew that certain actions had consequences, right? Like, it didn't matter how badly I wanted something or wanted something to be a certain way. There was consequences to my actions. Do we want to live in a society that has laws? Or do we want to live in a society that doesn't have laws? Because we can't just pick and choose on the fly based on which law we like and which law we don't like, right? We have laws. Laws are in place to enforce the whole action consequence thing, you know? If you rob a bank, you broke the law. You robbed a bank. The consequence is you go to jail. It does not matter what you needed the money for. That's irrelevant. It's not like, oh, you robbed a bank. Tell me why, though. You bring up some good points. Yep. You know, sure, you were hungry. You didn't have any money. Okay, we'll let this one go. You know, that's not the way our society works. And the thing that makes me the most irritated is somewhere along the line, emotion started to be what we operated on, you know, and the law does not take emotion into account for the most part. It is very black or white. Did you commit the crime? If yes, this is the punishment, right? So, like, for instance, all the headlines about the woman that was shot, they're already labeling it like murdered by ICE, killed by ICE. As soon as they found out she was a mother of 3, they're showing pictures of stuffed animals in her glove box and all that stuff. None of that matters. None of that matters. Her aspirations in life, what she wanted to do with her life, if she's going to school to be a fucking pediatrician, to help starving children, whatever, none of that matters the moment she broke the law. Once you break the law, you have the consequence. And the consequence is different for every situation and every law that you break, right? You don't need to know anything more on this situation other than the fact that she was told to get out of the vehicle. Stop and get out of the vehicle. The second she did not do that, and started in motion to flee, she broke the law. Do we care about laws? That's what we need to ask ourselves, right? Because this is the thing that I'm hearing a whole lot. There's like all this debate whether she meant to hit him or just to flee. Look, even if she just wanted to flee, she was breaking the law, okay? Now, think about this. If she was not meaning to hit him and was trying to flee, but still hit him and he died, okay? Let's just say in this hypothetical situation. The only thing that would be debatable here would be if it was murder or if it was manslaughter. Do you think that the dead ICE agent would give a flying fuck if it was actually just manslaughter? You know, I don't know if he has kids or whatever, but do you think they'd be like, you know, let's say he has kids because they're playing the whole half of the emotional thing about the woman that got shot having kids. Let's say the ICE agent had kids. Let's say she went to flee and accidentally ran him over and he died. Do you think it would bring any more comfort to those kids' lives when they're visiting the grave of their father and their mom's like, listen, little Jimmy, I just want you to know technically it wasn't murder. It was actually manslaughter, you know? Like, no. The consequence for the action doesn't care about that, right? Because after she gets shot, what she was going to do doesn't matter because we don't know, right? She very well easily could have drove up a little bit, put it in reverse, went flying backwards and tried to run him over. You don't know. No one knows. No one will ever know for sure because she is dead. She was the only one that knew her actions. In fact, she was the only one who knew if she was trying to hit that guy or not. And she's dead, right? So everybody else has an opinion on if they think she tried or was not trying. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because you don't know. No one knows. All it matters in that moment was, could there have been bodily injury done to the ICE agent standing in front of the vehicle when she decided to move forward? Now, there is a lot of talk about whether he should have been in front of the vehicle or not. So here's my understanding of it. My understanding of it is it's more leaning towards like not really typical tactics, I guess I would say. Like, I don't want to say policy because I don't really know if there's any policy that says you should not do that. But what is happening is more judges and DAs and prosecutors and stuff like that are starting to side with, if the officer puts himself in the front of the vehicle or in front of the vehicle, that he is putting himself in that danger, right? So I think eventually the trend will be that maybe these shootings are not justified in some situations. Like, if the police officer is just like walking in front of the vehicle and that's when the person decides to go, then, you know, that's more justified. But when they are deliberately standing in front, I guess what I am told is it's not really like the most current thought process on it, because like there's no way that a police officer is going to just reach out and be like, poof, man of steel, stop a vehicle, So I like the shooting is justified, but I don't think that it will be a thing that police officers do anymore as like a way to try to stop somebody from fleeing. It's there's just a lot of emotion put on top of facts, and we have to decide as a nation, do we care about facts Or do we want emotion to play into this? There is no room for emotion in laws. That's the problem. And I think when I look around and I'm like, what is going on with our country? I think it's because as a man, I don't typically think with emotion first. It's not my guiding like way that I see the world. I see the world with ration and logic, right? And others see the world through emotion. And the way that the society is going is part of our political system knows that, and they are capitalizing on emotion. But I think it's starting to fade a little bit. I think people are like kind of a little bit exhausted of being emotionally manipulated all the time. Like, we're not dumb. You know what I mean? So when you turn on the news and you hear a ridiculously emotional spin on something, you're like kind of insulted. You're like, fucking really? You're trying to say that that's what that was, you know? Yeah. It's unfortunate. I don't want to see this. I don't want to see this. So this is a picture. I don't know, like, the reverse lights are not on, so I don't know if they're about to drive forward. I have no idea. I also thought that it was more snowy in the front of the vehicle, so like this could be AI. You know what I mean? Like, fucking, it's crazy. But I thought it was more snowy. But yeah. Yeah, Jesus Christ. You know, you see stuff like this, like, you know, Democrats are domestic terrorists. Like, listen, we cannot, we can't start going down that road. You know, we can't start going down that road. I see a lot of this, but I think if we keep on going, I'm going to see, you know, more stuff the other way. But right now, I'm just seeing a lot of stuff that it's like in support of the shooting, and a little bit. If you're still talking about Democrats and Republicans, you have no idea what is actually going on. Yeah, I am more in that camp than I am in like the oh, it's Republicans, or oh, it's Democrats, you know. Look, I hate to tell you this, but neither side actually gives a shit about you. It all comes down to votes and money. And they're all either, both sides are going to try to figure out which way to like manipulate their audience. You know what I mean? Because it's like the Democrats have gone the route of trying to be like the voice of the underdogs and the minorities, right? So they're playing really hard into like, we care about brown people and gay people and stuff like that. And then the Republicans, they're going the opposite route, and they're like, you know, Israel and whatever. You know what I mean? So it's like both sides have their way of trying to manipulate you into voting for them. The problem is when people truly think that their team has their best interest in mind. I promise you, they don't. It's not the way the world works, you know? And one of the things we're talking about with emotion ruling everything nowadays is somewhere along the line, we like really like started thinking about like what is fair and like what is right. But when I grew up, I always heard the phrase like life isn't fair. And I'm like, oh yeah, well, you know, life isn't fair. And somewhere along the line now, like everybody is expecting it to be fair. So you have the rest of the world that does not pretend that life is fair, China, Russia, all these different places. They're out for their number one interest. And then we have people inside of America that think that life is supposed to be fair and are mad at America for putting our interests first and playing the game that is called reality. Like, life is not fair. And I don't know if it's because for the longest time, like, America kind of like, we sort of like bullshitted ourselves and we're like, we're going over there to spread freedom. These people want to be free. And we all know it was our own interest. But as long as we're not like blatantly killing people and their lives might improve from our interests, I'm okay with it. Because I'm an American. I live here. I'm sorry, but I want my life to be better. I don't want to make other people's lives worse, but I'm not going to be like, come step on my neck, put your boot on my neck. No. I want to be on the winning team, So I don't know what it is. Like, it's definitely like this like, I kind of want to say it's like this Reddit like mindset where it's like, actually, the justified thing and all this stuff. It's like, God, dude, most of the time, that's not the way the world works. That's not the way the world works. And like the disconnect too. The disconnect is crazy. Like, it's like that. It's not what you know, it's who you know. We all know that that's true. We see it in our workplaces, right? We're like, here Dan got promoted. He's an idiot. I don't know how he did, but I heard that he's friends with the boss or whatever. And you're like, oh yeah, it's just how it works. Okay. That is how it works. That is how the world works. So don't be like taken aback and fucking when we see it play out in politics. It's the same thing, just blown up on a bigger scale. So when you get over like that's not fair, that shouldn't be how it is how it is. Should it be that way? I don't know. It's just how it is. Like, stop trying to look through everything with this like moral lens of like, this puritanical, like, is this what Jesus would do? Like, no one is thinking that way. And if you don't acknowledge that, you end up in this like really fucked up situation where you're mad at the world because it doesn't match up with what you imagine it's supposed to be. You're like, this isn't what I signed up for. No, it probably isn't. But the more you realize what it actually is, the more you can play the game within it. And a lot of these people that are protesting ICE, it's like these same ICE agents 2 years ago or whatever, when Biden was still in office, I bet there were ICE agents then. They probably were still working. They probably were working for Biden. So when politicians, again, emotionally manipulate you and put labels on them like the Gestapo and stuff like that, most of these people, they're not Trump's Gestapo. They're just ICE agents. That's what they chose to do for a living. They were when Biden was in office. They still are when Trump is in office. They didn't change. They're the same person. Technically, they're doing the same job. It's just a different president directing them to do a certain thing. So like all this like emotional rhetoric about like they're Gestapo, they're Nazis or whatever. It's like they're just doing their job. If you don't like the laws, we need to go to the voting booth and vote to change them. This whole bullshit about a threat to democracy is that it's bullshit. It's not a threat to democracy because the people voted. The people voted for what we have right now. So wait your turn and vote for something else if you don't like the way that it is. Standing in the way of people trying to do their job is not the way you change the policies. And everybody thinks they're like some fucking V for Vendetta, like vigilante out there with their backpack on and their gas mask and their fucking umbrella. And they're like, I'm going to change the world because Reddit made a post and I got a bunch of fucking upvotes on it. It's like, that is not how the world works. That is not how the world works. That's not how our society works. Because here's the thing. If we ignore that whole process of we voted for this thing, right? As near and dear and passionate as you might feel about a specific topic, there is someone else out there who feels just as passionate and just as right as you do, but they're on the other side of the issue. You both feel super passionate about the issue, but have a different viewpoint, which leads me to believe if one was smart, you would say, maybe you can't listen to your emotions about something. Like, however emotional you are about something doesn't mean you're right about it on both sides. You could be like, I really care about this issue and I think this. And the other person could be like, I really care about the same issue and I think this. Right? So how passionate about it, it doesn't mean that you're correct. It has nothing to do with that. So my point is, in this case, people out there might feel really passionate about what ICE is doing, and they might be super against it. I know there's people out there that are super against it, right? Putting websites together that like track ICE's movements and all that stuff. Okay, now I want to flip it around. What if 5 years from now, 10 years from now, down the future, there's a group of people that feel just as passionate as you do right now about what ICE is doing, except they are anti-LGBTQ. And there's whole websites out there that are plotting the movements of pride parades and whatever. And they are doing this to something that you agree with. You are not going to like it. That's just the way that it is. So we need to make sure that we keep that in mind and say, hey, even though I don't agree with this thing that's happening right now, this is protesting it and all that stuff is not the way to change it. Because I don't want people acting like this about something I care about in the future. You know? Yeah. Just the way that it is. I think my headphones turned off. I was talking so long. Yeah, it did. All right, let's look at a couple more memes. And again, like, please comment. If you have something meaningful to say, please comment in the chat. You know? I kind of keep seeing the same memes over and over again. What is this? Oh, this is an idiot. This is an idiot post. All right, so somebody posted this. Let me make sure I moved on this. Yeah, okay. You can see it. Somebody posted this from Title I U.S. DOJ policy on use of force. Firearms may not be discharged solely to disable moving vehicles. Specifically, firearms may not be discharged at a moving vehicle unless 1. A person in the vehicle is threatening the officer or another person with deadly force by means other than the vehicle, or the vehicle is operated in a manner that threatens to cause death or serious physical injury, and no other objectively reasonable means of defense appear to exist, which includes moving out of the path of the vehicle. Also, placing oneself in the path of a moving vehicle constitutes officer-created jeopardy and undermines any claims deadly force was necessary. So I think this is, I don't know if this is actually correct here. It's a little bit gray, but this is kind of what I was talking about when it comes to the sort of, I'm going to say like best practice, right? The best practice is to not stand in front of a vehicle like that. However, most of the time, like there's a lot of ambiguity in there of like for instance, it said without the person being able to get out of the way, right? It's like, well, was he able to get out of the way? Whatever. He got dragged the last time for however many yards and had so many stitches and all that stuff. Like, that is something that the court is going to decide. They're going to sit down and they're going to say, was this correct? That's not up to us as the public to be like, we cannot be the judge and the jury and all that. It's like, look, the bottom line is, if you didn't want to get shot, comply. If you think you were falsely detained, we have a process for that. Take it up with the courts. Everybody's always railing about the courts and the due process and all this stuff until it's something that affects them, negatively. And then they're like, no, I just want to be able to take off. I just want to be able to, if I don't agree with it, I just want to be able to go. It's like, no, that's not the way it works. You're either for laws or you're not for laws. Don't pick and choose. You cannot pick and choose. The fact that she put herself in that situation was the saddest thing, And it's kind of interesting too, because I guess like somebody from the family was quoted as saying like she should have just minded her own business. And it's like, I would love to know more about her background, because like the internet's already doxing the agent, like they're like, here's his name and all that stuff. And we know her name and we know a little bit about her, but it's all of like the emotional stuff, like she had this many kids and whatever. But what I would love to know is when she got radicalized. And I really want to know, did she become radicalized when she married her partner? Like, did her partner radicalize her to this? Because when you look at the pictures, of course, they use the pictures from way back, when she looks her most professional and all that stuff. And it's like somewhere along the line, and then this happens a lot, but she went from being straight to being a lesbian, which happens a lot. People, sexualities, whatever, But clearly there was some life changes, I guess, is what I'm saying. And I would love to know like the timeline of when these life changes happened. And I think the dad died, and you know what I mean? Like what led her to be so passionate about this that she would leave her kids somewhere. I don't know where she left the kids. I saw a post. I'm not even gonna say it because it was just somebody posting. So I don't even want to put it out there, but I don't know where her kids were, So like, I don't really want to hear that angle of her just being this, really good, caring mom, and now her kids won't have a mom. It's like, I'm pretty sure a really good, caring mom wouldn't have just jumped in a vehicle and taken off to like another state or whatever to purposefully put your car in front of federal agents trying to do a job. You know what I mean? Like, like it just doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense to me. I would also love to know like what her prescriptions are. You on a bunch of SSRIs, like, what's the deal? What makes you so passionate about this? Because when you look at the protesters, and here's another thing too that is interesting. Remember when there was like the Portland protesters, and they were like, it was like for several nights straight there in the more towards the summertime, where it was like, oh, things are going to boil over, and all those protesters were outside of ICE in Portland. And I think Trump was like talking about sending in the National Guard, or did. The news was very selective about when they showed the protest, the people that they showed. Okay. When you went on to say like YouTube or Kick or something like that, and you witnessed for yourself what was going on there by watching a live streamer who was walking around like with their phone, right? You watch hours of that, you get a real good sense of who is actually there, and it's fucking weirdos. Nowhere else in society would we be like, let's listen to that person's opinion. No, you wouldn't. Like there was some really obese lady in a motorized wheelchair that didn't have a shirt on and just her tits were flopping around and she's like trying to run people over and screaming weird shit. It looked like a costume party. Like people were dressed as aliens and cows and dinosaurs, and it was just weird. Most normal, well-adjusted people would look at that crowd and go, I don't know why they're there, but like I probably don't agree with whatever they're saying because these people look weird. And I think that's what a lot of Americans felt. However, the news spun it and only showed like the people that look like the patriots, you know what I mean? The real patriots. And it's like, it got wild. You watch some of those live streams, it got fucking wild. So it's deceptive. It's deceptive because you see if the news shows these normal looking people and they're really against that, it makes you go, huh, maybe they got a point. Like maybe I should think about this a little bit more. But no one's walking up to some random person in a wheelchair with no shirt, driving around saying some crazy shit. No one's like, hey, what do you think of the current economic state of the United States? You know, who are you going to vote for? It's like, fucking no, you're a weirdo. And if we were standing in line somewhere, I would move away from you because you probably fucking smell, you know? Jesus Christ. Yeah, so I see a lot of it's like, I don't know what that was. I don't think that's her, but Jesus Christ. It's like I want to scroll past things, but I don't want to like actually, I want to show both sides, but I don't want to freaking show freaking people getting murdered, you know? All right, what does this person say? I just randomly picked this one. I'm full-blown conservative right-wing. There is definitely more to be said about this. One video claims she tried to U-turn. Another tried to say she was the head of the protest. Another tried to say she said she was pulling out with faint audio. The video where the car sped into him at that speed, she was already shot. You can see, oh my God, you can see from the other angle. In all instances, death could have been avoided. Yes, I'm not even going to read the rest of this right now. Yes, absolutely all instances, death could have been avoided for two different methods. One, never show up that day. You know, don't get in the road. Protest outside of an ICE facility. Don't go to where they're actually conducting an operation. Two, get out of the fucking vehicle when they tell you to. Yes, absolutely. All instances, all angles, all camera views, all everything. Yes, death could have been avoided, but let's put the accountability where it belongs. We're like theory crafting past all the evidence. Well, she was probably going to do this and she was going to do that. Look, she shouldn't have been there, and she shouldn't have started driving or put the vehicle in motion, period, when she was told not to. That's it. So then he says, in the end, this post is the political narrative to save ourselves grief as Republicans/conservatives and perhaps give the government more leeway, when in reality, we could place the responsibility on the man-child who had many other options. ICE is wonderful. There's no reason he had to take them down with him. A man doesn't crack that easily under pressure, mind you. Okay. I'm not going to go dig this up, but like just a month or so ago, I don't think it was an ICE agent, but it was a police officer. I think it was like in December. He got died. He got died. He got killed by getting run over by a vehicle. So it's very easy for us to sit here and play Monday night quarterback and be like, well, he didn't die. Yeah, he didn't die. But we know how we have the luxury of looking backwards at how it played out. Most people in that moment do not have that luxury. And again, it goes back to the whole thing. Like, if you get killed, you don't give a shit if you're dead, if it was murder or manslaughter. You know what I mean? Or negligence or whatever. You're dead. Nobody wants to die. Nobody wants to die. Period. Yeah. God, I do not like these memes. I don't like it. Yeah, and see, like something like this, right? The left shoots people for having an opinion in a debate. The right shoots in self-defense for being run over. Like, it's like you can't boil it down to that simple. It's not that simple. I think everybody would love for it to be that simple because it would make life a lot easier, but it's not that simple. You know what I mean? It's nuanced. Nuance, that's for sure. So, all right, let's take a break from this topic, and I'm going to switch over to, I'm going to talk about, once I take a little sip here. So this is a viewer question. Viewers submit questions ahead of time. They're not political, and I think I will keep them not political just so that we can always kind of like take a break, reset, and go back to more heavier topics after this. But so this is a viewer question. What if the career you worked towards doesn't feel worth it anymore? I think that happens to a lot of people, myself included. I went to school to be a physical therapist assistant. And once I got out into the field and did the job for a certain amount of time, it wasn't bad. But at the same time, I was like, I don't know if I can do this every day, whatever, until I retire. Like, it just doesn't spark my soul, my heart. Like, this isn't why I'm clocking in every day. So it happens to a lot of people. And I think that there's the what is it? The sunken time fallacy, something like that. That's basically holds a lot of people back, and they say, "Well, I've worked so hard towards this career, or I've been in this career for so long. Like, I don't want to switch because I'm going to lose all that time was a waste, and I'm going to lose all that progress and all that stuff." Look, at the end of the day, we only have so much time on this planet, and you need to do what makes you happy. Be responsible about it. Don't just quit and not have a backup plan, but definitely start working towards a career that you do find passion in, and it can be one sort of little step at a time. One of the things that really made me feel this way was, funny enough, when I was working my last clinical rotation in school to become a physical therapist assistant, it was at a nursing home. And I got to talk to a lot of people that were basically waiting to die. And I got to talk to them about a lot of stuff. And since I was just a student trying to get my hours, I was just kind of phoning it in sometimes. And I would have these conversations with them, and I would ask them sort of point blank, like, what do you regret most in life? And most of them said something along the lines of like how they spent their time. None of them said, "Boy, I really wish I worked more." None of them said, "Boy, I really wish I missed more of my kids' birthday parties because that extra 30 grand that I made really made my life, different." No, it was all about, I wish I worried less. I wish I spent more time with people I loved, and I wish I spent more time doing what I love to do. I think we can get real caught up in the rat race, and at the end, when at the end, when we're all waiting in that waiting room, you know what I mean? We're going to look back and wish we had more time. But here's the other thing that most people don't think about. We might get like 80 years if we're lucky, right? Well, the first 18 of it isn't even really in our control. So we have this middle period, but you're not necessarily always living a good life right up to 80. You're not hiking a mountain, and then be like, well, okay, I hit my 80th birthday. It's time to clock out. No, most of the time it's a little bit of a slow decline, So if your thing was, let's just say mountain climbing, if your thing was you love to mountain climb, there's only a certain window in your life that you can actually mountain climb. Past a certain age, your body's physically not going to be capable of doing that. So when it comes to work, I think we kind of have it flipped a little bit. We spend a lot of our time in the beginning, work, so that we can do what we want to later in life. I don't think that's the way to do it. I think you need to work just enough to be able to do what you want to do in life now, because tomorrow isn't guaranteed anyways. So if you're thinking about switching careers, do not hesitate. Have a plan, strategically set it out, and just execute on it. Don't wait. There's no point in waiting. I hope that helped. All right. I like that one. That was a good question. Okay, so moving on to the next topic. We're moving off of, I don't even want to talk about the fraud stuff with Minneapolis because I don't want to say it's old news, but we've kind of the news cycle has kind of moved past that a little bit, and we're kind of already moving past Venezuela, to be honest. But one of the things I want to talk about with Venezuela is I think a lot of people are upset that, I don't know, I think it's twofold. I think a lot of people are upset that America went into another country and snatched their president. I think the majority of those people that are upset, though, are upset at who did it. And by that, I mean Donald Trump. Right? Now, I think it's important to think about this. Let's just talk about Venezuela and then our actions and our involvement afterwards. But Venezuela is, I think a lot of people want to call it a failed state, or the debate is it isn't a failed state, the airports are still going and life is continuing and everything like that. So us going in and snatching out their president is a little bit of a shock to some people. We'll get to that. But it's more like it's a permissive state. And the difference is, in a failed state, generally speaking, in a failed state, the infrastructure fails, right? No running water, the airport stopped working, no power, all that stuff. That is a total collapse. That is typically a failed state. A permissive state is when it gets overtaken by corruption, right? Where on the surface you're looking around and you're everything seems to be running, right? But the people at the top are making decisions that suit them best. And one might say, hey, that's a lot like the United States. Yes, I think there's a lot of corruption in the United States. However, the permissive state side of things is that they have certain rules for, say, the population, but then they ignore those rules for the 1%. And what it means to America is it allows, what it means for Venezuela and the rest of the world is it allows for them to be like the jump off point for a lot of other activities. And I know the United States, we really focused on like the drug trade and all that stuff. And it's like, yeah, sure. You know, they did send drugs out of there and stuff. But one thing that we don't really think about a whole lot is like some of America's, let's just call them, I don't know, enemies, opponents, you know what I mean? But let's give this as an example. Let's say Iran, right? Iran can funnel money through Venezuela, and like Venezuela can clean it and it can come out the other side looking like something from Venezuela. Like that's kind of like what a permissive state can do. Or some intel analysts were saying that like places like Iran were able to get documentation from Venezuela. So like, let's just say a terrorist comes into Venezuela, they pay the right amount of money, and Venezuela is like, here you go. Here is a passport. And it is a legit passport, except it didn't go through all of the process that typically would be done to get a legit passport, right? That's a little bit of the difference of like the things that you don't think about. So Iran, Russia, China, they can use a permissive state to angle themselves against us. Now, and that's pretty much fact. You can like look into all that stuff and you can track people and you can figure it all out. Now, does that justify the United States swooping in and snatching someone's president out from under them? I think it's super complicated. I think it's really complicated. If we started, all right, this is where like, this is my opinion, okay? Do I think we should have done it? I don't know. Do I want all of our adversaries and our opponents to know that we can and we will do it if you fuck with us? Yes. I do want them to know. I do want the world to be on notice that if you fuck with us, we will snatch your president in the middle of the night, no fucks given. I want that. But I don't want us to do it all the time. You know what I mean? Like, I want everybody to respect us that way. So they're like, dude, you better like listen to what America, because again, I'm an American. I unapologetically put our interests first, America first, because I fucking live here. You know, I want that. That's the whole point. If I'm an American, I'm going to be Team America. If you don't want to be Team America, go somewhere else. And I don't mean like, get out of our country. I just mean like, it is your life. Go where you are happiest. If you don't like the way that this country is running and you want to go somewhere else, go somewhere else. You could be like Team Finland or whatever. You know, no hate. I think in the grand scheme of things, what we did now, I'm going to say this. I think it was a win for us, for America. Do I think it was a win for Venezuela? I think that all of the Americans boo-hooing about what we did, I think that's stupid. The Venezuelans are happy about what we did. The unfortunate thing is we didn't really do a regime change, and regime changes never work. We haven't had a successful one since we've tried so many times, right? So the Venezuelan people are probably happy right now that we did what we did. However, I don't know if it's going to play out very well for them. I think it's going to be a lot of chaos and a lot of craziness and all that stuff. That aside, do I think it was a win for America? I do. I think we will, you know, like, admittedly, we did it for our own reasons, you know, like And this administration has gotten a little bit better, at least about being transparent about that. Like, yeah, we want oil or whatever. I like hearing that better than when we go in and we do something and it's like, we did it for the people. No one believes that anymore. No one believes that anymore. And within the US, people that are opposed to those actions, it gives them material to be like, we're so corrupt. Like, we say we're going in for oil, or we're going in to help the people, but we're really going in for the oil. So it like really starts to like create this divide. And I think if our administrations going forward, we're just like, yeah, we're doing this because it's the best for Americans and we want that oil. It's the truth. We all know it. And it shuts down half of the argument that is like trying to act like we're not being honest about something. Let's just be fucking honest about it. You know, we want the oil. We don't want Russia and China to have the oil. We don't want Russia and China to have a foothold in South America. That's just the way it is, you know? And a lot of the other sides, like rhetoric and stuff like that. Right now I'm saying the other side because it's Democrats, but if we flipped it, the others, and a Democrat was doing this, the Republicans would be doing the same thing that the Democrats are, right? But when we take away the shame game, shame, right? When you're just like, yeah, I fucking want the oil. People are like, well, that's mean. Yeah, it is mean, you know? And I think that shame game is like really, it's going away. It's losing its effect. You know, the whole like, you're Nazi, you're racist, it's like, oh my God, you've said this so many times. Like, it doesn't even mean anything anymore, you know? So what we're doing in Venezuela, I think if you were to think selfishly about it, I think it's a good thing for America. Do I want to see us doing it all the time? No. And here's the other thing too. Another YouTuber, or a YouTuber, I don't even want to call myself a YouTuber, but a YouTuber, Valhalla VFT, Nate over there on his channel, former Green Beret, like, dude's badass, knows his shit. He made up a good point, and he outlined the strategic operation of it all, and sort of like they built like Delta Force like built this mock-up of it, of the skyscraper where Maduro was, and you know, we had the intel that was like, this is the room and all this stuff. We knew so much about it. He was like, I kind of wonder if it was a little bit of an agreed upon thing, you know, like either Maduro's people underneath him sold him out and made it very easy for America to swoop in and snatch him out like that. I mean, it was like a crazy operation. And I don't want to take anything away from them, because all it says is, even if it was like more of a plot from the inside, it just goes to show the power of our intelligence side of things, right? Like the fact that we were able to plot out every single room inside of a skyscraper, you know, in Venezuela months before an attack, that says something. If our spies were able to convince the people below Maduro to like let him go and let this whole thing happen, that also says something towards our capabilities. America's capabilities isn't only rockets and missiles and planes and boats and soldiers and all that stuff. It's also all this other things. So all around, it was a flex. You know, it was a flex. And when people are like, international law, I agree. I agree. But at the same time, who enforces the international law? America. You know? Like, we are the ones, when other people break international law, we're the ones that go and enforce it. So I'm not saying like we should, just go, breaking all international law or whatever, but it's more like we are international law. For good or bad, You know how many times we've probably brought up the whole international law thing to punish another country because it benefited us? I'm sure a lot. So again, this whole like viewing the world through a morality lens, and if it's fair and if it's not fair or whatever, it's just not how the world works. So when America breaks an international law, who the fuck are you going to go tell? You know what I mean? What are we gonna? We're gonna attack ourselves. You know what I mean? We're gonna stop do that. You know. Now, when it comes to like, Trump says so many unhinged things. Like he just says crazy shit. Like he's definitely the most meme-worthy president for sure. But the whole Greenland thing, you know, and he's basically like, we'll just fucking take it. I don't know if like I don't even want to say like this is just a strategic thing on his part. This is why he's doing it or whatever. I don't know. The whole 4D chess thing, I don't really know. I don't know if he is that smart, honestly. However, I think he's sort of riding the coattails of what we just did in Venezuela to see how far we can push certain things. Like, yeah, you know what? America will break the rules sometimes, and you're going to have to deal with it. We will snatch your president, and we will go snatch Greenland away if we want to. And there is nothing you can do about it, because guess who you would tell, Denmark? You'd come and tattle and tell us, and we would have to go get Greenland back from you or for you. Do I think we should do that? No. You know, and in fact, like Denmark has done a lot of things for us. They are much more of an ally than our greatest ally, Israel. You know, like Denmark has done a lot of stuff for us. So I think it's a little bit of a flex. I think it's a lot of bullshitting, kind of like, look, we just did this crazy thing. We'll fucking do this crazy thing too. And he also talked about going into Cuba and whatever and all that stuff. Like, look, I do want those countries to be afraid that we can do something like that. And I want their politics to reflect that, you know, but I don't want us to go around doing that. That isn't the team I want to be a part of. You know what I mean? But two things can be true at once. And I don't know what we would do with Greenland. I'm assuming it's like strategically, its location is strategic, or I don't even know. Like if there's mineral deposits there, I'm not really sure. If somebody knows what we would possibly want Greenland for, let me know. You know, I'll do more research on it. But yeah. So that's my take on Venezuela. And here's the other thing, okay? The other side, the other side is like, we kidnapped somebody's president. You know, they use all these terms, kidnapped and stole and all this stuff to, again, emotionally paint a topic a certain way, to emotionally manipulate you. Look, was it kidnapping? Was it not kidnapping? I don't know. Call it whatever you want. I'm going to focus on what actually happened. He is no longer there anymore. We have him. Whether you want to call it kidnapping, whether you want to call it like this or that, it doesn't really matter. Like, no one's going to be like, oh, shit. Someone's calling it kidnapping. We better return him. You know? Again, that's just not the way the world works. It's not the way the world works. All right. Let me go into the third viewer question. Okay. So this viewer question, how do you balance ambition with not burning yourself out? I think this is quite difficult, and it really becomes more difficult depending on what your personality type is. Like if you are a high-strung, atypical person, or if your ambition is fueled by anxiety, kind of like mine is, to be honest, this part is a little bit difficult, because those fuel sources for your ambition are definitely more volatile, you know? So this is what I would say. If you want to balance your ambition with not burning out, you have to set your goals much smaller at first. You have to prove to yourself that small goal is sustainable. Like you can maintain that pace. For instance, with this YouTube channel, in March, it'll be a year, still very, very new. But in the beginning, I was like, I want to start a YouTube channel, and I want to do this and do that and put out this many videos and whatever. And I was like, well, first I need to figure out how to make a video and edit a video and sound and lighting and all this stuff. So instead of saying I'm going to put out a video every day, right? I started by saying, let me see if I can put out one video a week. If I can do that and I can maintain it and I can prove to myself that it is a sustainable thing, I'm going to do 2 videos a week. And then I'll go 2 videos a week with a short every single day and 1 live stream, right? So it's like it builds upon itself. But if you set that way in the beginning, like if I was like, I'm starting a YouTube channel, I'm gonna do a live stream and I'm gonna do shorts every day, and I'm gonna put out 2 videos a week, I might have burned out because at the time I had all the other shit to do too. All that other stuff I had to figure out. Like how to even light this thing and get the mic to sound this way and buy a microphone and all that stuff. So in the beginning, I think it's way easier to set it way too high, and then your ambition wants that, but you don't technically have the fuel yet to do that. So like dial it back some, and slowly ramp it up. I also personally really hate saying I'm going to do something and I don't do it. It just bugs me personally. Like if I say I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And so maybe it's a little bit of a cop out, but I like to understate something and over deliver. I love that way more than saying I'm going to do this and then I fail and I don't do it. So I hope that helps. So that was the last one for that. I want to talk about moving on. We're going to talk about one other topic, and really this is just like witnessing something. And let me refresh this. So I want to go over the Iran protests, and it's really popping off. I mean, it's been popping off, but it is popping off tonight for sure. Like for instance, I will make sure we're on the right screen here before I start yapping. All right, we are. Cool. Okay, I'm going to turn this down because I bet it's like, rah! So again, this is protest in Iran. You know what's crazy? Over there, when they're truly overthrowing a tyrannical government, they actually are waving their own flags. I believe that is the old version of the flag. I don't really know a ton about Iran, but the people are rising up. It's like that's actually pretty symbolic. He's tying the flag, but it looks like he's also like covering that dude. This guy right here. Imagine being this guy. Like, you're the fucking man right now. Like, that is such an iconic. That's an iconic video right there. Might go down in history. Like, damn. Yeah, there's some crazy shit happening. So it says, I'm not afraid. Female protester says in Western Iran. Why is she bleeding out of her mouth? That's crazy. So the caption on that is, I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid. I've been dead for 47 years. Dude, that's powerful. That's powerful. Nonstop gunfire in Tehran right now. Without urgent international support, the regime will slaughter innocent people. We need help. All right, let's look at this. Gunfire. I saw a video earlier where it was just like bullets were like going up into the sky and stuff, and I was like, who are they shooting at? You know what I mean? Who are they shooting at? See if this
This
is
is an urgent message from Iranians to the world. The Islamic regime is falling. A revolution is taking place, the most sophisticated and the greatest revolution of the 21st century. Millions of Iranians are fighting against the evil Islamic regime in Iran in more than hundreds of cities, and the government has shut down the internet just like they did it 7 years ago when they shut down the internet and killed a lot of people. Have your eyes on Iran. Your silence is complicity. To all the leftist media, to all the liberals, Democrats, and to all the Muslims, this is your last redemption. Take this opportunity and stand with the people of Iran. If you don't, you will never, ever be allowed to speak about human rights because we know you don't care about human rights. To everyone else, to all the free people of the world, have your eyes on Iran. Raise awareness about the situation. Iranians are unarmed. This is a sophisticated revolution. They are taking down an evil Islamic regime, a dictatorship. Ali Khamenei is done. His regime is done. Stand with the Iranian people. Tell everyone. Share this video with everyone. Tell them that the internet is shut down. Do not allow them to kill people.
Yeah, so they they shut off the internet and like all this stuff because they don't want, like, obviously when there's and I think probably most countries would do that when there is a massive revolt and a riot and stuff like that. Like, people communicate so much now through cell phones and the internet. So when you kill cell phones and you kill the internet, it really makes it more difficult for like the revolution, or the rioters or protesters, everything, to communicate with each other. And also the secondary effect, is it makes it more difficult for the people to show what is happening to the rest of the world. And like he was saying, last time they did this, they shut off the internet and they slaughtered a bunch of people. So they shut off the internet. I think it was at least today. I don't know if it went off tonight or whatever, but recently it turned off the internet. And now it's obviously getting crazy.
While there is silence, but there is an internet blackout in Iran. Tell everyone what's going on. Stand with Iranian people. This revolution will win. This revolution will succeed. And it only has one leader, King Reza Pahlavi, who is the leader of the dissidents of the opposition. And there's only one leader. No MEK, no Mujahideen, no one else. Reza Pahlavi. They are chanting his name in the streets. Millions of people. Have your eyes on Iran. The internet is shut down right now. Tell everyone, please, we beg you, stand with Iranians.
I do think that is one thing that's pretty interesting is they are all pretty unified in wanting that person to take control, because I think he was in control when this regime came in and ousted him, and so the Iranian people want him to come back because life was pretty good under him. Now, I don't know a whole lot about it, but everybody is always like, actually, and want to state that the old guy wasn't good either. But look, I'm not Iranian. I don't live in Iran. If the people want a certain person, who am I to say, no, you actually want this other person? They can have whoever they want for a president. If they're that passionate about it, who am I to be like, no, you guys really should do this other person? So there was a person, let me see if I can find it. Give me one second. I'm going to look this up. This lady was posting a lot of stuff from like inside of Iran. Like, I don't know how she was getting her clips out. Here she is. I don't know how she was getting her clips out, but she was doing a lot to like show some pretty crazy videos. So let's look at it and see what she's been posting lately. So across Iran right now, landlines are down, mobile phone signals are down, electricity is out, the internet is down. Nobody can call each other, let alone call an ambulance if there was an emergency, which is pretty crazy. Reports of endless regime gunfire. Iran is now a prison of 90 million hostages. It kind of puts things into perspective, doesn't it? A little bit. Like what we're going through right now as a country, what's what's all over our news, and then you have something like this going on. It's just like, holy, it's crazy. Somebody said if action is going to be taken, the United States needs to know now. Yep. Let's see what else. I think that's the old flag, like the other dude. See, I told you that guy was going to be, I don't want to say famous, but you know, that's pretty crazy. Is X about to swap the Islamic regime flag, the lion and the sun flag, as an emoji? Because that would be incredible. Wow, all right. Yeah, I see. Updated emoji. Like, yeah, because you know how you could be like, in your bio or whatever, you can put the flags you support. I don't even fucking know. I don't even know what that is. That's a crazy picture. That's a crazy. See if she has some videos. So one thing that I will say is, so the title of that was Long Live the Shah. So one thing I will say that is pretty interesting is, now, I know that there's probably damage done certain places. However, it is pretty crazy to see not a protest, but like this is a revolution happening, and they're not burning their own stores down. You know, they're not causing damage to their own place, which is, I never understood that. Like when BLM was happening and stuff like that, it's like, why are you destroying the place that you're then going to have to live in? You know, like you can be mad at the police, you can be mad at the politicians, but why are you mad at Johnny's Deli? You know what I mean? Like, it never made any sense to me. It's wild. Now, here's the other thing. So this is some burning. I'll bring up that one in just a second. But here's the other thing too. Like, these people are out here protesting and in the streets, knowing 100% if it doesn't go their way and they're identified, they're going to have their head chopped off. So when we look at the people protesting outside an ICE facility and it's some fat bitch in a wheelchair with her titties hanging out, naked, saying crazy shit, and doesn't get arrested, you know, whatever, but still thinks they're oppressed. It's like, you have no idea what oppression is. These people in the streets, if this revolution doesn't happen, and this, you know, picture is identifiable of them, like that lady that was like, for whatever reason, bleeding from her mouth, and, you know, clear as day, like, she will get her head chopped off if the regime change doesn't happen. She's still out there in the streets because they believe in it so much. So, you know. So let's check this out. That's crazy. I don't know what is burning there. That's pretty wild, though. Ooh, This one's gonna be a little touchy. The world rioted over George Floyd overdosing on fentanyl and is nearly dead silent for Iran now, which is true. Let's see. Let's go. Hopefully we see something. Sure. All right. Let's see. Let's see if we can see anything about this happening right now. Minnesota. Okay. Ice. Why is it being weird? Like their site's like fucking struggling. It's kind of interesting. Yeah. Well, we'll give them the benefit of the doubt because I'm going to refresh it one more time. We'll give them the benefit of the doubt because their site is not loading right now, but I'm not seeing pictures of Iran happening right now. Let's go to Fox News. Oops. All right. So Fox has something on Iran. But again, it's just this little tiny thing. And, and CNN will give them the benefit of the doubt. They might have said something about it. I don't really know. It definitely is not like front and center, I worked from the dirt up and the foreign fraudsters stole my American dream. Yeah. Yeah, I know, man. In God we trust, 007. Yeah. The American dream, like the American dream. I think the American dream was a boomer thing, I think that's kind of like why everybody's so disassociated with everything. We're all just kind of like, whatever, fuck it. Clock into our shitty job, make our shitty money, eat our shitty food, But at the same time, we're not in Iran. You know what I mean? Like the American dream that we were sold is not what they told us it would be, but it's still a lot better than most places in the world. I think it's just the lie, It's the lie that really like gets to us still, because we want to believe in the American dream and everybody's still saying that the American dream is possible, but we know it's not. We're like, it's not really like that anymore. Because back in the day, you could start like a vacuum company and you were the first vacuum company. Now, I don't know, there's hundreds and thousands of vacuum companies. So like now what's going to make your vacuum company stand out over all those other vacuum companies? All those like firsts, unless you're in the tech industry, all those firsts are kind of gone. And so then it's just like, all right, quit telling me that the American dream is still here. As an independent with zero debt who's earned public trust, Mr. President Trump can count on me. Yeah. I'm an independent as well, and I also have very little debt. It's important, It's important to having very little debt gives you a lot of freedom. It makes that lack of American dream, it makes it a little bit more of a easier pill to swallow, I guess, So, yeah. Okay, just shrink this. This chat thing's a little out of control. I could talk to you guys through it like this. Hey guys. Hey, listen to what I say. I'll have to fix that. Oh man. Yeah. Here, I'm gonna. Actually, you know what? Maybe I can just freaking, we'll do it on the, we'll do it live. That's better. That's better. It's a little less out of control. So, yeah. So that's really what I wanted to talk to you about tonight. And this stream went well. I think the stream, you know, like I usually try to keep it around an hour. We're at an hour and 40 minutes. We had a lot to talk about. But yeah, I think tonight was a good blend. Like I said, the YouTube channel is young enough that I have to set the precedent now that I want to talk about whatever I want to talk about, and I am not going to censor myself, because the moment I censor myself, it only is going to get more difficult as the channel grows to stay true to who I am. So I will always listen to all opinions from all sides, but I have to say my truth, or else there's no point in having this channel, you know? So if you're down for the ride, please, like the stream, give it a subscribe. I post videos all the time, so check those out. And I think I'm going to call it here for tonight. Live stream every Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I hope to see you all next Thursday. So thank you very much. I really appreciate it, guys.